Children's Mercy Hospital to see my dentist for my teeth.
Highway Patrol issued a statewide alert tonight about a mother and a daughter missing from Springfield tonight. They say 19-year-old Gypsy Blanchard and 48-year-old Claudinia Blanchard were last seen June 10th.
Investigators continued searching for her daughter, 19-year-old Gypsy, through the night. One thing that worried friends and helped investigators.
Imagine a life imprisoned by illness, a web of deception woven so tightly that the truth remains hidden, and a crime so bizarre it defies conventional understanding. Today, we unravel the mind-bending mystery of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. In this case, what begins as a story of maternal devotion and selfless care takes a horrifying twist that no one could have predicted. A young woman with a list of medical conditions as long as your arm, a mother who claimed to be her sole savior, and a community that believed their story without question. But beneath the surface of their idyllic suburban life lies a dark and convoluted tale of manipulation, deceit, and the ultimate betrayal. Welcome back to True Crime Capital. D.D. Blanchard, originally named Claudine Petra, was born in Chack Bay, Louisiana, near the Gulf Coast, in 1967. She spent her early years growing up with her family in nearby Golden Meadow. D.D. was one of 5 children born to Claude Anthony Peter Sr. and Emma Lois Gisclair. According to relatives, D.D. had a tendency to take things from her family, and they believed this behavior was her way of reacting when things didn't go as she wanted. During her early adulthood, she worked as a nurse's aide. In 1997, there were suspicions within the family that D.D. may have been involved in her mother's death by withholding food from her. At the age of 24, D.D. became pregnant with her daughter, Gypsy Rose, by Rod Blanchard, who was 17 at the time. They chose the name Gypsy Rose because D.D. liked the name Gypsy, while Rod was a fan of the rock band Guns N' Roses. Rod, at his tender age of 17, believed that once you get a girl pregnant, you have to marry her, which is exactly what he did. Shortly before Gypsy Rose's birth in July 1991, the couple separated due to Rod's realization that they had married for the wrong reasons. Despite Dee attempts to reconcile, Rod was done with the relationship, and Dee went to live with her family, taking her newborn daughter with her. Rod remained actively involved in his daughter's life. By the time Gypsy turned 3 months old, her mother became convinced that the baby was suffering from sleep apnea. Consequently, Dee began making frequent visits to the hospital for overnight stays with a sleep monitor. Various tests were done, all of which failed to reveal any signs of anything wrong with the baby. As time passed, Dee's concerns expanded to a broad spectrum of health issues, which she attributed to an unspecified chromosomal disorders. At some point, Dee asserted that Gypsy was afflicted with muscular dystrophy and even made her use a walker. Gypsy, on the other hand, recounted a different incident when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She mentioned riding her grandfather's motorcycle and being involved in a minor accident that resulted in a knee abrasion. Dee, in contrast, claimed that doctors had prescribed a wheelchair for Gypsy, which she would need to use on a full-time basis. In 2001, Dee stated that Gypsy was 8 years old, though she was actually 10. During the same time, Gypsy was designated as the honorary queen of the Crew of Mid-City, a child-focused parade that took place during Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Gypsy discontinued her formal education after completing 2nd grade. Her mother took on the role of homeschooling her, ostensibly due to the severity of her illnesses. Nevertheless, Gypsy managed to teach herself how to read by immersing herself in the Harry Potter books. While Gypsy's father, Rod, had remarried, Dee moved in with her father and stepmother. When preparing food for her stepmother, Dee would intentionally contaminate it with Roundup weed killer, resulting in her stepmother's severe illness during this period. In the same time frame, Dee faced multiple minor legal issues, including charges of writing bad checks. As the Petra family became increasingly concerned about Dee's treatment of Gypsy and expressed suspicions about her role in her stepmother's deteriorating health, Dee decided to leave with Gypsy for the New Orleans suburb of Slidell. Remarkably, her stepmother's health quickly improved after her departure. In Slidell, Dee and Gypsy resided in public housing, covering their expenses with child support payments from Rod and public assistance that Dee had acquired due to her daughter's medical conditions. Their days were primarily filled with visits to various specialists, primarily at Tulane Medical Center and New Orleans Children's Hospital. These appointments were made in pursuit of treatment for the ailments Gypsy had, including hearing and vision issues. A muscle biopsy failed to confirm the presence of the muscular dystrophy. However, Dee Dee still insisted the medical outcomes were incorrect. She, however, succeeded in obtaining treatment for Gypsy's other purported medical problems. Dee Dee explained that Gypsy experienced seizures every few months, and so as expected, Dee Dee secured anti-seizure medication. Numerous surgeries were performed on Gypsy during this period, and Dee Dee made regular trips to the emergency room for minor health concerns. In August 2005, after Hurricane Katrina devastated the New Orleans, Dee Dee and Gypsy departed their ruined apartment for a shelter in Covington, specifically designed for individuals with special needs. Dee Dee maintained that Gypsy's medical records, including her birth certificate, had been lost during the floods. At this time, a doctor from the Ozarks suggested they relocate to her native Missouri. The following month, Dee Dee and Gypsy took the doctor's offer. They were airlifted to Missouri. In the beginning, Dee Dee and Gypsy established their residence in a rented house in Aurora, situated in the southwestern region. During their stay in Aurora, Gypsy received recognition from the Oli Foundation, a proponent of the rights of feeding tube recipients, as its 2007 Child of the Year. In 2008, Habitat for Humanity constructed a modest home for them, complete with a wheelchair ramp and a hot tub, as part of a larger community project on the north side of Springfield. Subsequently, they relocated to this new residence. Their story, portraying a single mother and her severely disabled daughter who had fled the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, garnered substantial local media attention. The community rallied around the woman, now going by Claudinea Blanchard, but known as Dee Dee. This surge of support encompassed numerous charitable contributions. While in Louisiana, the mother and daughter had occasionally found lodging in Ronald McDonald houses during medical appointments. Yet in Missouri, they received complimentary flights for medical visits to Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City, free trips to Walt Disney World, and backstage passes to Miranda Lambert concerts through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They were often photographed alongside the singer. Furthermore, Rod Blanchard continued to make monthly child support payments of $1,200, regularly sending gifts to Gypsy and occasionally engaging in phone conversations. On one such call, Dee Dee instructed him not to reveal her daughter's true age since she thinks she's 14. Rod and his second wife consistently hoped to visit Springfield, but Dee Dee frequently altered their plans. She told her Springfield neighbors that Gypsy Rose's father was a drug addict and an alcoholic, describing him as abusive and claiming that he had never come to terms with his daughter's health challenges, while also never providing any financial support. Gypsy's engaging personality left a lasting impression on many who encountered her. Her small stature, almost toothless mouth, oversized glasses, and childlike voice contributed to the perception that she indeed suffered from the numerous ailments her mother had professed. Dee Dee regularly shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the appearance of a chemotherapy patient. She convinced Gypsy that the medication would inevitably cause her hair to fall out, so it was best to shave it preemptively. Gypsy often concealed her baldness with wigs or hats. Whenever they ventured outside, Dee Dee would bring along an oxygen tank and a feeding tube. Gypsy would continue to be fed the pediatric liquid nutrition supplement Pediasure well into her 20s. Dee Dee employed physical abuse to control her daughter, ensuring they always held hands when in the presence of others. If Gypsy ever made remarks suggesting she was not genuinely ill or demonstrated capabilities above what her mother claimed, Dee Dee would respond by squeezing her hand intensely. In private moments, Dee Dee would resort to striking her with open hands or even a coat hanger. Medical interventions persisted as well. Dee Dee had some of Gypsy's salivary glands treated with Botox and later removed entirely to manage her drooling. Gypsy later asserted that her mother had induced the drooling by applying a topical anesthetic to numb her gums before doctors' visits. The combination of the absence of salivary glands and side effects of the anti-seizure medication she received caused extensive decay in Gypsy's already limited number of teeth, ultimately leading to the extraction of most of her front teeth, which were subsequently replaced by a dental bridge. Additionally, tubes were surgically implanted in her ears to address the numerous supposed ear infections. Dee Dee forged her daughter's birth certificate, altering Gypsy's birth date to 1995 in an effort to reinforce the false claim that she was still a teenager. Remember that Gypsy is actually born in July 1991. In a subsequent interview, Gypsy revealed that for 15 years, she remained uncertain of her true age. However, Dee Dee did retain another copy with Gypsy's accurate birth date, which Gypsy happened to glimpse during one of their hospital visits. This discovery left her confused, but Dee Dee quickly dismissed it as a mere misprint. At the beginning of 2011, at age 20, Gypsy began attending science fiction and fantasy conventions, often in costume, using them as opportunities to immerse herself in the diverse and inclusive communities that welcomed her, despite her wheelchair. During this period, at one of the science fiction and fantasy conventions, she initiated what may have been an escape attempt. This endeavor was cut short when her mother discovered her in a hotel room with a man she had met online. Once again, Dee Dee produced the falsified documentation featuring Gypsy's younger birth date and threatened to report her to the authorities. Following this incident, Dee Dee damaged Gypsy's computer with a hammer and warned her that she would do the same to her fingers if she ever tried to escape again. As part of her punishment, Gypsy found herself leashed and handcuffed to her bed for 2 weeks.
And my mom came to get me. She told him that I was 15, so he freaked out because he was 36 at the time. My mother brought me back with her, smashed my computer. She chained me to a bed, tinted the windows so nobody could see what was going on inside the house, and put bells on the doors so if I tried to sneak out again, she could hear. I had asked her, if I can go to the bathroom. She'd unchain me, take me to the bathroom, but then chain me back up to the bed.
Dee Dee later conveyed to Gypsy that she had submitted paperwork to the police, falsely asserting that Gypsy was mentally incompetent. This led Gypsy to believe that seeking help from the police would be futile, as they would not believe her. Gypsy, being in her 20s at the time, was interested in dating, but her mother's smothering made it impossible for her to engage with other boys. She would show interest in different boys and try to ask me advice on how do you approach them, how do you kiss a boy. Gypsy's neighbor and close friend Aaliyah Woodmansee later recalled, but said Dee Dee would immediately try to shut the girl talk down. Little did Dee Dee know that Gypsy was still able to secretly access the computer, even setting up a private Facebook account using the name Emma Rose to send messages to her friend Aaliyah.
We were friends and we were very friendly to each other, but we hadn't really gotten to know each other on like a real friendship level until she started messaging me. Gypsy had set up a secret Facebook account so that we could talk and she could vent, without having to be filtered or censored by her mom, because her mom was always present whenever we were hanging out together.
On October 9th, 2012, while her mother slept, Gypsy connected with Nicholas Godejohn, a man from Big Bend, Wisconsin, through an online Christian singles group. Nicholas was born on the 20th of May, 1989. He had a criminal history that included indecent exposure and a record of mental health issues, sometimes categorized as dissociative identity disorder. He also had autism spectrum disorder. Gypsy's relationship with Nicholas was flourishing, even though they had limited communication, but their back-and-forth texts even included the pair sharing pictures with one another. In 2014, Gypsy disclosed her relationship with Nicholas to her 23-year-old neighbor and friend, Aaliyah Woodmansee, who believed herself to be a big sister to Gypsy. Actually not knowing at the time that they were the same age, Woodmansee was concerned that Gypsy was being taken advantage of by an online sexual predator. Gypsy and Godejohn engaged in online flirtation, sometimes involving elements of BDSM, which Gypsy later indicated was more of Godejohn's interests. Woodmansee attempted to dissuade her, still under the impression that Gypsy was too young and vulnerable to make such decisions. She perceived Gypsy's plans as mere fantasies and doubted that they would come to fruition. Despite Dee Dee's determined efforts to curtail Gypsy's internet use, which included destroying her daughter's phone and laptop, Gypsy managed to maintain contact with Godejohn, who saved printouts of her online posts until 2014. The year is now 2015. Gypsy organized and financed Nicholas's encounter with her mother in Springfield. Her plan was for him to coincidentally bump into her and Dee Dee while they were at a movie theater. The intention was to initiate a relationship in this manner and subsequently introduce Godejohn to her mother. As soon as they met in person for the first time, Gypsy led Nicholas to the bathroom, where they engaged in a sexual encounter. On June 14, 2015, deputies from the Greene County Sheriff's Office in Missouri, USA, discovered the lifeless body of Claudine D.D. Blanchard.
The Sunday that it all started was just a very typical Sunday. But then I see this post. It was from their Gypsy Blanchard Facebook account. That was a very jarring moment.
I was like, well, that seems weird. I bet you they got their Facebook account hacked and somebody's been playing games with them.
And then there's another post. So I called their phone, and they didn't pick up.
Her body was found in her bedroom, lying face down on the bed, surrounded by a pool of blood resulting from multiple stab wounds. It appeared that the body had been lying there for several days. Her daughter, Gypsy Rose, was conspicuously absent. Greene County Sheriff's Office was aware that Gypsy Rose suffered from a litany of chronic ailments, including leukemia, asthma, and muscular dystrophy. She also had mental capacity of a 7-year-old due to brain damage stemming from a premature birth. Concerned neighbors had alerted the police earlier in the evening after reading distressing Facebook posts, fearing that DD might have been the victim of foul play, and that Gypsy Rose, whose wheelchair and medications remained at the house, may have been kidnapped. The following day, authorities located Gypsy Rose in Wisconsin, where she had traveled with her then-boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn. Upon encountering disconcerting Facebook posts originating from DD's account, the friends of the Blanchard family grew increasingly concerned. Their attempts to reach the family by phone remained unanswered, prompting several friends and neighbors to visit their residence. Although they were aware of the Blanchards' habit of embarking on unannounced medical trips, the presence of DD's modified car in the driveway made such an explanation seem unlikely. A protective film on the windows obstructed visibility into the house due to the dim lighting. Receiving no response at the door, the concerned friends dialed 911. When the police arrived, they needed to await the issuance of a search warrant before entering the premises. However, they permitted one of the neighbors who were present to climb through a window. He observed that the interior of the house appeared largely undisturbed, and all of Gypsy's wheelchairs remained in their place. Once the search warrant had been granted, the authorities entered the house, where DD's lifeless body was found in her bedroom. A GoFundMe account was established to cover her funeral expenses, and potentially those of Gypsy as well. Those acquainted with the Blanchard family feared the worst. Even if Gypsy had not suffered harm, they believed she would be entirely vulnerable without her wheelchair, medications, and essential equipment like oxygen tanks and a feeding tube. Among those gathered on the Blanchards' lawn, Woodmansey shared what she knew about Gypsy and her covert online boyfriend with the police. She presented them with the printouts she had retained, which included the boyfriend's name. Relying on this information, the police requested assistance from Facebook to trace the IP address responsible for the post to DD's account. This endeavor revealed that the IP address originated from Wisconsin. The following day, law enforcement agencies in Waukesha County executed a raid at Nicholas's residence in Big Bend. Both Nicholas and Gypsy surrendered and were apprehended, facing charges of murder and felony armed criminal action. The news that Gypsy was safe brought relief to Springfield, where she and Nicholas were subsequently extradited and held on a $1 million bond. However, Sheriff Jim Arnott of Greene County, in announcing this development, cautioned that things are not always what they appear. Subsequently, the media in Springfield uncovered the truth about the Blanchards' lives. Gypsy had never been genuinely unwell and had always had the ability to walk. It was her mother who had compelled her to feign otherwise, employing physical abuse as a means of control. Arnott urged individuals not to donate any funds to the family until investigators could ascertain the full extent of the deception. When investigators disclosed that Gypsy was indeed an adult, and did not possess the physical and mental health issues claimed by her mother. Public outrage over the alleged abduction of a disabled girl transformed into astonishment and some sympathy for Gypsy Rose. Subsequent investigation revealed that some of the physicians who had examined Gypsy Rose found no evidence of the purported disorders. One doctor suspected that DD had a condition known as factitious disorder imposed on another, a mental ailment in which a parent or caregiver exaggerates, fabricates, or induces illness in a person under their care to garner sympathy or attention. DD had changed her name after her family confronted her regarding her treatment of Gypsy Rose, suspecting her of poisoning her stepmother. Nevertheless, many individuals accepted her narrative as true, and they received support from charitable organizations such as Children's Mercy Hospital, Habitat for Humanity, Ronald McDonald House, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. She subjected Gypsy Rose to unwarranted surgeries and medication while exerting control through physical and psychological abuse. Mark Feldman, an internationally recognized expert on factitious disorders, remarked that this was the first instance he had encountered in which an abused child had taken the life of an abusive parent. Through trial, it was revealed that on June 14, 2015, Nicholas returned to Springfield while Gypsy and her mother were away for a doctor's appointment. After their return home and DD had fallen asleep, Nicholas entered the Blanchard residence. Gypsy facilitated his entry and provided him with duct tape, gloves, and a knife, with the understanding that he would use these items to end DD's life. Gypsy concealed herself in the bathroom, covering her ears to block out her mother's screams as Nicholas stabbed DD 17 times in her back while she slept. Following this brutal attack, Nicholas and Gypsy engaged in sexual activity in Gypsy's room. They also seized $4,000 in cash from the house, primarily originating from Rod's child support payments. The pair subsequently sought refuge in a motel outside Springfield, where they planned their next steps. During this period, they were captured on security cameras at several local stores. The most shocking part to the police is that Gypsy was walking without her wheelchair, no feeding tubes, no oxygen tank, and no medication on site. She actually appeared like any regular girl strolling with her boyfriend. Gypsy, on the other hand, believed at that point that they had successfully evaded capture. To avoid being apprehended with the murder weapon, they mailed the knife to Nicholas's home in Wisconsin before embarking on a bus journey there. Several witnesses who encountered them en route to the Greyhound station noted that Gypsy donned a blonde wig and walked without assistance. Following the revelation of the harrowing abuse inflicted upon Gypsy by DD, public sentiment rapidly shifted from viewing Gypsy as the perpetrator of a violent murder to recognizing her as a long-term victim of child abuse. Although first-degree murder charges in Missouri can carry the death penalty or life without parole, County Prosecutor Dan Patterson swiftly announced his decision not to pursue either Gypsy or Nicholas, characterizing the case as extraordinary and unusual. Subsequently, Gypsy's attorney, having obtained her medical records from Louisiana, negotiated a plea bargain for Gypsy, leading to a second-degree murder charge. During her year in the county jail, Gypsy experienced a significant improvement in her health. Her attorney said that she had gained 14 pounds, 6.4 kilograms, a notable contrast to most inmates who typically lose weight during their incarceration. In July 2015, Gypsy accepted the terms of the plea agreement and received a 10-year prison sentence. Nicholas, on the other hand, still faced the more severe charge, as prosecutors argued that he had initiated the plot to commit murder. Both Nicholas and Gypsy concurred that he was the one who had physically carried out the murder. Nicholas also faced harsher prosecution due to his distinct personal circumstances, receiving less sympathy and understanding due to his limited involvement in the abuse. Importantly, Gypsy's plea agreement did not compel her to testify against him, and his past criminal record did not help his situation either. Remember that criminal history of indecent exposure. I don't condone what both Gypsy and Nicholas did. With that said, Gypsy experienced one of the worst child abuse cases in history. However, she was never diagnosed with a mental disorder. Nicholas had a record of mental health issues, sometimes categorized as dissociative identity disorder. He also had autism spectrum disorder. It does not appear that factor was seriously considered throughout his trial, even though his lawyers attempted to use it as part of their defense. In January 2017, Nicholas's trial was postponed when prosecutors requested a second psychiatric evaluation. His legal team asserted that he possessed the IQ of a child and was on the autism spectrum, suggesting diminished capacity. Initially, Nicholas had waived his right to a trial by jury, but later changed his mind in June of that year. In December 2017, the judge scheduled Nicholas's trial for November 2018. During the trial, prosecutors contended that Nicholas had premeditated the crime for over a year, while his defense emphasized his autism and suggested that Gypsy had orchestrated the crime, with their client acting out of love and compliance. Text messages between Gypsy and Nicholas, including sexually explicit content, were presented to jurors, along with the knife used in the murder. These messages revealed Nicholas' inquiries about DD's sleeping habits and living space. Video footage of Nicholas's police interview after his arrest, during which he admitted to the murder, was also introduced as evidence. On the trial's third day, Gypsy took the stand and testified that while she had indeed proposed to Nicholas the idea of killing DD to end her mother's abuse, she had also contemplated getting pregnant by him. She hoped that DD would have to accept Nicholas if she were carrying his child. She further disclosed that she had stolen baby clothes from Walmart during a shopping trip to prepare for either plan, though Nicholas had not conveyed his thoughts on the pregnancy idea. After 4 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Nicholas Godejohn was found guilty of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. In February 2019, he received a life sentence for the murder conviction, as prosecutors had opted not to seek the death penalty. Judge David Jones denied a motion by Nicholas's lawyer, Dwayne Perry, for a new trial. Perry argued that the jury should not have been privy to Nicholas's consideration of raping DD on the night of the murder. Additionally, he contended that the state's psychologist should not have testified, while Nicholas's psychologist should have been allowed to establish his diminished capacity. While the judge denied the motion, he acknowledged that an appeals court might consider the latter point a significant and possibly reversible error. The neighbors of the Blanchards were profoundly shaken when they discovered that Gypsy's ailments had been entirely concocted. Aaliyah Woodmansee, whose revelations about Gypsy's relationship with Nicholas led the police to the couple on the day following the discovery of DD's body, was overcome with disbelief upon learning that Gypsy had never been genuinely ill or disabled. Her mother reflected on how everyone had unquestioningly accepted DD's assertions without demanding any evidence, prompting her to wonder if the mother and daughter had secretly ridiculed their neighbor's gullibility. Kim Blanchard, unrelated to the family, who had summoned the deputy sheriffs to the house, grappled with feelings of self-blame, questioning her own credulity by saying, "What have I been believing? How could I have been so foolish?" A candlelight vigil in honor of DD, attended by over 60 people, was held in downtown Springfield the evening after the discovery of her body. During a news conference, Sheriff Arnott commented on the case, remarking, "Springfield is a giving community. We surround people with love and financial support when we believe it is needed. However, we are often deceived, and I believe that is now glaringly evident in this particular case." Only one of the charities that had extended assistance to the Blanchards issued a statement following the revelations. A spokesperson for Habitat for Humanity, whose volunteers had constructed the Blanchards' residence and others on their street, expressed profound sorrow over the entire situation, stating, "We are deeply saddened by the entire situation." DD's relatives in Louisiana, who had previously confronted her about her mistreatment of Gypsy many years prior, expressed no remorse for her death. Her father, stepmother, and the nephew, who had initially disclosed Gypsy's actual health condition when she initially began using a wheelchair, all maintained that DD had brought her fate upon herself and that Gypsy had endured the necessary consequences. They declined to contribute to her funeral expenses and ultimately chose to dispose of her ashes by flushing them down the toilet. In contrast, Rod Blanchard, Gypsy's father, displayed a more forgiving attitude. He observed, "I think DD's problem was she initiated a web of deceit, and there was no way out once it started. It was like a tornado got started." Rod expressed his happiness upon witnessing the first video of Gypsy walking independently. January 4th, 2018, Gypsy Rose Blanchard shared, "I feel like I have more freedom in prison than when I was living with my mom. Now I'm allowed to live like a normal woman." She is currently incarcerated in Missouri's Chillicothe Correctional Center. Gypsy, who refrained from speaking with the media until after her guilty plea, said that she had been able to research Munchausen syndrome by proxy, now known as factitious disorder imposed on another, using prison computers. She recognized that her mother exhibited every symptom of the disorder, saying, "I think she would have been the perfect mom for someone who was genuinely ill." Gypsy admitted that she had believed her mother's false claim of having cancer, even though she knew she could walk and consume solid food, which led to her consenting to regular head shavings. Nevertheless, she had always held out hope that medical professionals would see through the deception, and she felt frustrated that none, apart from Dr. Flasterstein, did so. When questioned about her motivation for escaping her situation, Gypsy recalled the 2011 incident at the science fiction convention, which made her question why she was denied the opportunity to have friends like others her age. While she acknowledged that she and Nicholas had turned their casual discussions of murder into a horrifying reality, she also recognized her culpability and the need to live with the consequences. Nevertheless, Gypsy expressed her desire to assist other victims of abuse. Victims of Munchausen by proxy abuse often avoid medical professionals and hospitals in their later lives due to lingering trust issues, as noted by expert Mark Feldman. According to her family, Dean and Erin Lee Kaur, Gypsy occasionally displays the same sociopathic manipulative behaviors as her mother, who had served as her sole role model for much of her life. She is already psychologically very vulnerable, and she will require as much family support as she can get. On June 27, 2022, 30-year-old Gypsy married 36-year-old Ryan Scott Anderson, a man from Lake Charles, Louisiana. It is not currently clear how the couple met or what Ryan does for a living. His parents are Patrick and Joy. Sadly, Patrick passed away at the age of 59. Ryan is one of 4 children with 2 brothers and a sister. On September 29, 2023, the Missouri Department of Corrections confirmed that Gypsy has been granted parole and will be released on December 28, 2023, having served 85% of her sentence as mandated by state law. Comment down below your thoughts on this case. Do you believe Nicholas's judgment was fair? And what are your thoughts on Gypsy's parole announcement? Please continue supporting the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Thank you as always for watching. Stay safe out there,